afternoon for us at the Mead. We have been looking forward to it all year, and it's turning out to be even more fun than we dared to hope. Those of you who missed the dance outside, I'm sorry for you, but I dare say you'll see it later on YouTube because I saw a lot of students taking pictures.
Really?
I'm Lizzie Barker, the museum's director, and it's my great pleasure tonight to do the first round of thank yous and the introduction for your introducer. So I hope you'll bear with me for a couple of seconds. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge our very generous sponsors who are with us this evening. Hunk and Moo Anderson, thank you very much. Without their extraordinary support and their willingness to take a risk, it is not a usual thing to have Nick Cave Soundsuits placed alongside Robert Henri paintings of dancers. This project wouldn't have been possible, and we're deeply grateful. We're also extremely grateful for some of the funders who have assisted in making the exhibition possible, the Caden Hall Peterson Fund and the Lamont Lecture Fund. Every penny is greatly appreciated, and we do appreciate it. We're also appreciative of the lenders to the exhibition of the historical paintings, the Colby College Museum of Art, and a generous private collector who I hope is watching the live web stream of this at this moment. Thank you. Finally, I wanted to thank the colleagues at the museum who have brought their characteristic energy and creativity to this project. Virtually every member of our 14-person team has played an important role in this. Our preparator, Tim Gilfillan, not only installed the exhibition, but expanded his skill set by using a hairbrush on one of the sound suits. Our collections manager, Stephen Fisher, managed these unusual deliveries with characteristic aplomb. Our marketing manager, Karen Cardinal, thought of increasingly clever ways to get the word out so all of you would know how to be here. And last but certainly not least, my extraordinary colleague, Randall Griffey, who had the very clever idea of putting this exhibition and this event together. I'll turn over the podium and let you continue with the more formal introductions. Welcome, everyone.
So our program today is offered, as you know, in conjunction with Exotic Muses, dancers by Robert Henri and Nick Cave. The show compares and contrasts depictions of dancers by two artists associated with the avant-garde of their respective times. The union of art and dance seemed especially appropriate in light of the Mead's mission to foster interdisciplinary engagement with the fine arts. The Mead's interest in this project was underscored by the presence of the 5 College Dance Department among the most vibrant and accomplished fine arts programs in the Valley. We're joined this afternoon by one of the key contributors to that program, Marilyn M, whom many of you have met out front in a way, who teaches African, Brazilian, and Haitian dance across the 5 colleges. Marilyn has studied African dance in Guinea, Senegal, Brazil, Haiti, and Puerto Rico, among other locations. Since 1987, she has taught and performed throughout the United States at venues including Jacob's Pillow, which I know many of you know. Sylla is the director of the Bomb Delay Dancers and Drummers, and those of us who attended, many of whom I know did attend the terrific student performance just completed outside, have some insight now into Marilyn's impact on the creative life and culture on campus and beyond. On a more personal note, Marilyn, I want to thank you for making time in your very busy schedule to work with me on this project. It truly has been a pleasure. It says now, welcome Marilyn to the stage, and you're predictably you're already ahead of me.
Hi. Thank you.
Always a step ahead. Why am I not surprised? Our second special guest this evening joins us on the heels of having been featured on PBS NewsHour, on the PBS NewsHour on Tuesday evening with a piece by correspondent Jeffrey Brown, which I know some of you have seen, and if you haven't, you can Google it, and I recommend that you do so. Having the opportunity to exhibit work by Nick Cave here at the Mead has been a dream come true. I saw my first sound suit by Nick Cave in 2005 at the opening of the new Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art in Overland Park, Kansas, a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri. Now, Kansas may strike you as a surprising place to see top-flight work by a cutting-edge contemporary artist, but it really shouldn't. especially in this instance. Its prominence in this Soundsuits' prominence in the installation called clear attention to the talent and accomplishments of a 1982 alumnus of the nearby Kansas City Art Institute and Missouri native who was making it big in the outside art world with his multimedia creations that blurred life and art, performance, and sculpture. He joins us here today, as you may know, from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Like most, if not all, first-time viewers of Cave's exuberant, funky, and profound work, I was overcome by simple but resonant questions that more conventional art tends not to elicit. Fundamental questions such as, what? What am I looking at? What are these things? What were they made for, and for whom? How? How were they used? How were they conceived? How were they made? So this afternoon's public conversation between Marilyn and Nick will tease out answers to these questions and many others, and we'll be sure to leave some time at the end for questions from the audience. So with no further ado, please welcome our guests.
Okay. Welcome.
Thanks. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Folks know that he just got off a plane and he's hitting the ground running. All right.
Out of a dance performance.
Out of a dance performance, and he's leaving first thing in the morning. So I'm really excited to meet you. I'm really excited. I've gone online and seen a lot of your work. I've told people about you and what you do, and it's just, why is someone laughing?
That's me, Marilyn.
Oh, am I? Are you laughing at me?
No, I'm just caught up in the moment.
Oh, okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, I am Nick Cave. Who am I? Who is Nick Cave? Tell us who you are.
That's the question.
That's the first question. That's the first question. You told me nothing's off limits.
Question I tried to avoid.
Okay.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No,
Okay.
I do. I'm a messenger.
You're a messenger.
Yeah, that's what I am.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You're a messenger of...
It does. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, I don't. You know. You know, I think. You know, it's interesting. I don't know. I know that I'm here to deliver these deeds, and that's pretty much it. I really don't try to. My phone's ringing. I really don't try to understand it because I think it's very. I don't think I can.
Sure.
And it's something that I had to come to terms with. Mm-hmm. It was not easy for me to sort of surrender to that belief, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So you don't feel as if you have to define yourself in specific terms. I am a messenger.
Absolutely not. And I'm, you know, which I'm extremely pleased and glad that I don't, because it sort of keeps me very organic.
That's right.
In the way in which I sort of approach
very open
art making.
So it doesn't limit you.
Absolutely not.
So tell us about that first Soundsuit. 1992, the Twigs. Tell us about that and where you were at that point in your life. I was in Senegal, and I know that was during the Rodney King event. And I remember just being horrified at what was going on and being with African friends of mine, watching the news and seeing what was happening. And I know that you had a very profound experience during that period
you know,
of time.
I had just moved to Chicago from Detroit. I just completed my master's at Cranbrook Academy of Art. And so, you know, I was sort of shifting directions, and prior to that Soundsuit, I would say that I was a painter for the most part.
Okay.
Sort of, I was doing large sort of 8 by 16 foot sort of paintings that were sort of constructions that started on the wall, came to the floor. So that's what was happening in terms of my practice. But, you know, what's interesting is we never know what can sort of shift a direction or be so profound in your life that your way of thinking and making just completely flips itself upside down. And so, you know, that Rodney King incident sort of did that to me. And I think what was so profound about it is just sort of reading about, you know, really just how they brought description to his character, which was sort of interesting, you know, saying things such as larger than life, worked out with prison weights. And I'm just thinking, like, what does it look like? Scary, took 10 men to bring him down. So for me, I'm just sort of visualizing an image. Like, what does that look like? And then I really couldn't share my emotions with anyone. It was, you know,
it's a hard time.
Sort of coming into academia, and it wasn't really sort of, I wasn't with a peer group that I felt that I could talk to. I think that was it. And so, you know, I happened to be in the park one day, and I was sitting there, and, you know, I just happened to look down the ground, and there was a twig, and I don't know. I just, something just came to mind to build the sculpture. And I was looking at the twig as something that was discarded, dismissed, viewed less than, which I was sort of, that was sort of in response to how I was sort of thinking about myself as a black male. And so I built this sculpture. I never thought that it was something that could be brought to the body. Okay. And then I realized it could be brought to the body, put it on, and then when I moved in it, it made sound. So that was the sort of beginning
of the sound
suit. Sound suit. And then what I was thinking once I started to move in it, and I was then sort of moving into this space where it was about protest. And in order to be heard, you've got to make noise, be aggressive. So it was really sort of tossing around these multiple fields of power that was significant to, you know, what I was responding to. And then that just sort of spiral into me sort of thinking about myself differently. And as time went on, I realized that I wanted to be an artist with humanitarian sort of sensibility. So doing work that could sort of have a greater purpose.
So how long did it take you to make that first suit?
Well, I had to go to the park and gather all the twigs.
Gathered a bunch of twigs.
So it took
by yourself or with others?
No.
All by yourself?
This is all by myself.
Okay.
Probably to make it 3 weeks.
Okay.
Oh, no, we have slides here. I'm not even clicking through things. I don't know. I think we're just going to be clicking through, and if you see something you want to stop and talk about.
That sounds great.
That's how it's going to roll. About 3 weeks to make it.
About 3 weeks, okay. And so you put it on, and movement came to you?
Well, you know, I guess I should go back a little bit. In undergraduate school, I was studying modern dance.
Okay.
Through the Avenali program in University of Kansas, in Kansas City. And then in the summers, I would be in New York with the company. So I have always been interested in this sort of intersection between movement and art. I wouldn't say necessarily dance and art, but just movement.
Movement and art.
Yeah, and...
so did you ever perform professionally as a dancer? Or was it more about studying dance?
It was more about studying dance and realizing that was just another tool. For my sort of, that I can sort of pull from.
Sure. Now, could you go back? I wanted to ask you, as a dancer, about those leggings. I noticed in many of your pieces you have incredible leggings. Well, where do you get those? Where can I get a pair of those?
So we're moving into the retail side of things. Okay.
Well. And you have your sound suit.
Well, you can get them there.
Okay, why don't you?
No.
Would you like to know where you can get these leggings, you guys? Why don't we? This was going to be my last question, but would you like to share a little bit about that?
You know, the leggings that you see in the sculptures are all recycled sweaters. So basically, you know, and so the recycled sweater comes from that first twig. You know, that was just something that was discarded. So basically, in the work, that's a real strong component that I try to use as much of discarded, recycled, disclaimed sort of materials, and sort of just sort of tossing around the sort of notion of sort of reclaiming something and sort of bringing in this sort of new way of responding to it. But also, what we're doing, I have a partner that I'm working with Soundsuits Shop, which is an online sort of product line.
I've seen it.
So there's leggings there. So basically, it's like what we're doing is that we're taking sort of from the photography that we do. We're sort of taking prints from that photography and then producing cloth. And
there's some.
I mean, at one point in my life, I had a retail store for 10 years, so
I know
that whole sort of side of things.
Yeah, water bottles. There's some really nice practical items there, folks, as well. Beautiful things. Another question. So I've been looking at your incredible creations, and I'm wondering, can they see? Can you see? Is there a mesh so that dancers can see as they're moving around?
It depends on if it's for performance. You know, we take on different sort of responsibilities in terms of not only are we looking at materials and things that are sort of and thinking about stress levels within materials, but we're also thinking about the sight line. So as a sculpture, no, but in terms of anything that's for performance, we take that into consideration as we're sort of designing out the work.
And have you ever had a dancer fall or have an accident in a suit? And I ask that because as a dancer, it's happened to me.
No, I have
drumming
not,
and falling off of a drum.
Not yet. I hope let's hope not.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
No, I haven't. But that's.
It happens.
I have insurance.
There you go.
But this is the first Soundsuit that was made.
This is the one you made in 1992.
Yeah. And so also what I was thinking about was, I was also creating a protective sort of device too. So for me, it was like the suit of armor. It was sort of shedding me away from the world and
protecting you.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, I wanted it to have that sort of edge to it where it's something that is unfamiliar, something that is sort of unknown, and yet scary, but yet seductive at the same time. We tend to be drawn to fear, so it's sort of, it's the unknown that we, find ourselves sort of gravitating towards. So for me, that's really a critical sort of component within the work that, how do I sort of make, what is my role as an artist in terms of how do I get my audience to become engaged? And there's multiple things that I do. But.
So is this one piece? Is it two pieces? It's a headpiece separate?
It's three pieces. It's a headpiece, it's a jacket, and a pair of pants.
Okay.
So it's the suit, really.
And I understand you sew everything on. Nothing is glued.
No glue in the studio. So with the,
why is that?
With the twig piece, it's, I had to cut them into 3-inch lengths, drill a hole in them.
Okay.
And then they're wired onto an understructure.
I see.
The reason why not glue, because that's just not my thing. I'm interested in principles around building.
I see.
And proper sort of ways of building an object. And with performance, like in the twig suit, I mean, I have some that we, we use in performance. And, again, the durability and the stress on the materials. It's not that I want, to be sort of falling apart on stage. So we have to take that into consideration.
And I see you have dollies on this one.
Yeah, so this is, I spend a great deal of time, some of my assistants, at flea markets, thrift stores, and we're sort of resourcing, I realize that outside of my living space, the world is a surplus for me. So I don't really, absolutely. In my studio, you would be amazed, you would think that I have this abundance of surplus, but I really do not. I have what I need and what we're working on currently. But if we need something, we just sort of go outside the.
So in your home or studio, you don't have boxes of doilies and buttons and things?
I have boxes, but it's not like from this work you think that I was a hoarder, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you're not a hoarder.
No.
No.
But so we have really what we sort of
need.
Yeah. And I, like this past weekend, I went with a friend of mine, and so we sort of went online and sort of spent. So we start in Chicago, and let's say we'll go west. So we'll drive Friday, like 6 hours west, so we could be in Iowa.
Okay.
And so what we do with them, we just sort of map out where all the antique malls are.
Okay.
And then we sort of drive, hotel, wake up in the morning, and then we just come back down.
I see.
And so I'll do that, or I will take me and let's say 4 assistants will take a flight to Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And then we'll rent a van, a cargo van, and we'll just drive back up and just do it all back. Like that. But this is people that, this is what they do too.
Okay.
And so we're not only am I looking for stuff for my work, but I'm looking at all sorts of things. I'm interested in art, design, objects, furniture. You really sort of, I'm interested in, I'm thinking about reopening a store at some point, but it's about a lifestyle. So it's really sort of, and my thing is that I want to open a space that's not anything you need, but everything that you want.
Things that you want and need?
No, you don't need it. You don't need them, but you
just want them. There you go.
And so
sounds like my kind of store.
So therefore, what does that mean? To me, that means that, my selection has to be on. It has to really, and it's about a destination. Why would you come there? So, and being out in the world and traveling, I'm interested in those sort of places that are hidden away, but when you get to them, they sort of change your sort of perspective on how you sort of see things.
Now, are there places that you go to regularly enough that they call you, hey, Nick, we have this or we have that?
Well, they could if they had my number, but
okie dokie.
But they know when they're like, where have you been if we haven't been in frequently?
So do they put things aside for you?
No.
No. Ooh.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay. All right. So doilies and what else is on
the
one that you just changed?
This piece is made out of the ground cloth is porch screening, so it's plastic.
Okay.
And so you can literally see through it. The other surface is buttons that are applied on with a tag gun.
Okay.
So like when you buy merchandise, that plastic thing. So therefore they sort of stand off the surface a bit. So again, it's coming up with these methods that help sort of create shortcuts in the way of building the work, because I'm not interested in creating these doilies in the studio. We could, but they're available.
They're available, sure.
So it's and sort of for me, it's the doily becomes a medallion.
I see.
Of sorts. I don't know what's okay. Here we go. So this is an exhibition that was at Jack Shaman about 6 years ago. And so, you know, I decided to sort of design the space, thinking a lot about, you know, fashion in terms of the sort of format, you know, creating that sort of runway type of structure. And then in terms of building the work, there's couture sort of approaches in terms of the way in which we build the work.
And I see a lot of, I think about the Haitian sequin flags, and I see that in your work. It just, looking at those pieces makes me feel as if I'm in Africa, or I'm in Mardi Gras, or I'm in the Caribbean. There's fantasy, there's a lot of African culture involved. Did you study African art?
I don't know if, I wouldn't say that I sort of studied that in terms of as a focus, but, you know, what plays a very critical role in my work is sort of looking at ceremonial and ritual dress throughout the world, and taking where that becomes a component within the way in which, you know, I can bridge a Western sort of sensibility to a particular destination. So I'm thinking about, you know, looking at, you know, Haitian voodoo flags, spent time in Trinidad, Carnival as another sort of source of inspiration. Mardi Gras, looking, again, I spent a lot of time in Paris.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends that are in the fashion industry. I go to like the couture shows. So it's all about a spectacle. It's all about ideas that are associated with various sort of forms of masquerade and the dress.
So do you sketch these out, or do they just come to you? Is your head just
I don't
like
sketch
this
anything.
No.
It can't be sketched.
Okay.
It's, you know, I think what sort of triggers an idea is an object. That's where it begins. It's when I'm at a flea market and I will come across something that just sets me on fire. And I don't know why. It's just that I recognize it. And so I recognize the power in object.
Okay.
And so that becomes the sort of...
Listen, could we go back to that one for a second? Would you tell us about this? Is this the human hair?
Central. Yeah, this
Dyed
is human hair. And then the face mask is a found fencing mask.
Okay.
That's covered in bugle beads and wire.
Okay.
And so what I'm interested in here is sort of distorting the body. Sort of, again, how do I sort of get it outside of holding on to a familiar element, but then also pushing it into this sort of unfamiliar sort of.
And is that person nude there?
Is
that a nude body?
Is nude.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okie dokie. It's beautiful. It's wonderful.
And so this is the most recent project.
This is the herd.
That was a collaboration that I did in Texas about 2 weeks ago. And it was working with North Texas State University, a collaboration between the dance department, the music department, and the art department. And so I worked with 160 percussionists.
160?
Yeah. 60 dancers, and then the art department in my studio, who built these 30 horses that ran through Dallas.
How long did it take? So you were in residence?
Yeah.
How long was your residency? How long were you
The
in place?
residence was an entire semester.
Okay.
But I would come and go, so I
Okay.
wasn't just there.
There for the whole semester.
But you know, it was an amazing opportunity to sort of work in this way. You know, every now and then I will get a dream project. And what that means is a project that I've been thinking about, but I can't produce it until the financial means are in place.
That's right. That's right.
Because I could not produce this in my studio. It's not possible. I mean, the amount of raffia that it took to, I mean, the companies were like done with us. I mean, they were just like working around the clock to get the shipment out.
So where did you get all that raffia from?
It was a couple of places in California and then New York.
Okay.
But, you know,
you bought them out, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, it takes, you know, people don't understand that, you know, an idea, conceiving of an idea is one thing, but what it takes in terms of a team to build a body of work.
That's right.
So what transpired here is that the music program created the score for the piece. So basically, let's say we're running 5 blocks, and then the musicians were in a half circle. So that was sort of like the chorale that we would run to. And then the dance department then created the dance piece. And at one point of the performance, the back end separates from the front.
I see. So there are 2 people.
Yeah.
In each of these.
And so therefore it becomes from 30 to 60 people.
60, yeah.
And, but the idea was, you know, I'm always sort of thinking about, you know, ways to get the work outside into the public realm. I mean, that's really probably, you know, getting back to that humanitarian sort of component. So for me, what I was thinking about here was creating a piece that really sort of, you know, how do we get back to that dream state? You know, we tend to not dream anymore. And I think it has a lot to do with the economy and just, you know, really just trying to survive.
You mean dreaming in terms of sleeping and dreaming, or just daydreaming about?
Dreaming about being something or becoming something or doing something.
Sure.
So this
They're afraid to dream. People are afraid to dream.
Yeah, so this was me sort of, you know, I'm interested in ways that I can help sort of facilitate that back into the mind. And it was, and, you know, so when I got off the plane to sort of be introduced to the piece, I mean, that's what I felt. I felt like I was sort of hidden away because I was in the process of meeting someone for the first time. So when I saw this, when I was there in the audience and I saw it coming down the street, this herd of horses running, it was the most, it was just like I had imagined. It was this dream that was coming true. It was like literally just coming to me, and I was like literally just completely blown away. So, you know, it's, I mean, that's really sort of where I am within my work, is that, you know, it's not for me about being, you know, a celebrity or an art star.
But you are.
Well,
but you are.
I am,
yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
You are.
I shun away from it. Let me say that.
Yeah.
But it's about me sort of doing the work that I'm, you know, set here to do. So that's really sort of, at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. But it was amazing working with everyone in Texas. You know, my family was there, which is important to me. And just being able to produce this project. So hopefully the project will be traveling around the world.
That was my next question. Where are these horses? Where are they housed now?
They're housed in my studio. Not in the studio literally, but in a space within the building that
So they're yours. They belong to you. Yeah. The university didn't get to keep them.
The projects always belong to me.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Because sometimes it doesn't work that way. You set a piece of work, or you make masks and they stay.
Yeah.
But you keep everything?
Well, in terms of this project, this project is it has to be out in the world.
Sure.
Because it has a job to do. It has a responsibility. So you know, we're getting ready to it's getting ready to run in Chicago.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful.
But you know, it's interesting because, you know, I have to work with the city of Chicago and the commissioner of arts and culture. Okay. And I love that side of it. Like, how do I make it happen? So it's going to run from I don't know if you've been in Chicago, but it's going to run from one museum to the other museum.
Okay. And so when you say run, they will literally be running.
Yeah, they will
down
run
the street
down
with
Michigan Avenue.
percussionists. Okay. That's
So they'll be led by a police car in the front and in the back, and they'll be running. And it's not anything that's going to be like planned. I'm interested in this whole idea of creating this sort of happening guerrilla. I wanted to do it guerrilla, but I thought, oh, I can't afford to go to jail. So.
What do you mean guerrilla?
Meaning where it's not planned. It's
like
not,
a flash mob.
Yeah, just like it's just happening,
appears,
and it's just causing havoc.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just thought, oh, it's it's just too intense.
So now, is that part of your Soundsuit orchestra? I read something online that you were thinking about doing a Soundsuit orchestra. Would that be with the herd, with the horses?
No, I
or
don't
something
know what
totally
you read,
different. Well, I read it online.
No,
I have it in my notes. It's in my notes.
Okay.
Let me find it.
No,
you can talk about this beautiful piece while I find my notes.
And so what I'm, right now in the studio, what we're also working on is a series of new video works. And so they're silent right now. And so what I'm interested in is collaborating with orchestras. So like, let's say because I did a project with a public school in Chicago, and I worked with their music department who projected a video, but then they produced the score, and it was huge, and so they were in front of it on stage, and then the video was in the back.
What's the youngest group you would work with in terms of making suits, sound suits?
It depends on what the project is. When I had the exhibition Meet Me at the Center of the Earth was in Seattle, what was amazing is that these kids, that were 9, 10, came in, sort of looked at the exhibition, had to draw, had to write about the exhibition, and then go back and had to then make little sound suits.
Did they?
And so then the instructor sent me all of the images of what they all looked like. They were amazing. So then I thought, this is interesting. So then I proceeded to create like 20 $100 awards. That I selected like 20 and then sent them all.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it was, so depends on what, but in terms of wearing, it has to be much older. High school.
Sure.
I mean, college, what have you.
So tell us a little bit about the objects, the found objects in this piece.
So in this one, this is all constructed out of found sweaters.
Okay.
That have been cut up and made into sweater bones.
Okay. Sweater bones. I've never heard that term before.
Well, we just make it up in the studio.
We're making it up as we go. That's wonderful. And the leggings are sweaters
And so
too?
what that means is that, we're sort of cutting the sweaters and then we're rolling the sweater and then we're stitching it so it becomes this sort of long tube. And then this is then, in terms of way in which it's built, is just tying knots.
Tying them on.
Yeah, so it's just building, this thing is built by just tying the knots in the sweaters bones together to create this sort of structure. But what I'm looking at is sort of like the root systems of that, and looking at just sort of intersections and ways in which things are sort of overlapping and interfacing with one another.
How tall is that? How tall is it?
Human height. No, this is probably 10.
That's
9,
10 feet.
10.
Okay.
So there's a metal structure that's underneath.
Okay.
Armature that we sort of build on. But a lot of this in the studio, there is, there's structure in the studio, but there is, but the majority in the way in which I'm thinking and how things are built is very random.
Okay.
So it's like I don't really like to think about it.
Okay.
As opposed to just tie it in knots. And that's how I say it in the studio. Oh, just tie it in knots. And they just go, okay.
And
but
tie it in knots.
because it's not really, it's a feeling. Most of my work is sort of comes out of a feeling. I know what it has to, I know what it has to feel like, and I know what the methods are to get it there. Mm-hmm. So,
so is this one piece?
One piece.
It's one piece. So how would you put that on someone?
So
if you were going to put that on me, can I stand?
Yeah.
Will my mic come off? Okay. So how would you put that on me?
So it's
do I look like I'm wearing a sound suit, sort of? No? Okay.
So it's a metal structure.
It's 10 feet. It's 10 feet high.
Metal structure that's designed where it fits over the shoulders, and then it goes up like this. Okay. And so basically, and this is very soft, so it's bendable. So this would just, you would just put it on like this.
I see.
On the body.
Okay.
And then the rest just goes on your body.
And the arms are like
inside.
This.
So it's really sort of building like a cocoon.
Okay.
A coffin.
And it's breathable, coffin.
Structure.
Yeah, MRI. Yeah.
The mummifying.
But
mummifying
they can
the
see.
figure.
You can see. The dancer can see.
You could see through this, but this is really just for sculpture purposes.
Okay.
So that's a detail of what
it
looks like.
Sweater bones. Mm-hmm. I like that term.
And so therefore in an exhibition, this was in an exhibition where there were 3 of these, and you'll see a couple of other ones. Mm-hmm. But then on the floor was probably about that high, and as big as this floor, just a pile of sweater bones.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was sort of, thinking about shrines and, thinking about, again, this once belonged to someone.
Sure.
And sort of thinking about that. But this is what my head feels like most of the time. So it's just ideas, and it's just crazy like that. But here I'm starting to think about sound in a different way. I'm starting to think about the role of the body in a different way. And so I'm looking at and doing research, looking at the one-man band, for example.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
As a sort of starting point. And you see again where the sort of medallions, which are sort of hotbeds, become sort of this flat, sort of very graphic application, and yet it's repeated through the various sort of spinning tops. So how, again, how does the surface, as it moves up into a sculptural sort of dimension, is part of what this is about. And again, thinking about, just, bringing that sort of place of innocence within the work. And again, how do I get you as the viewer to enter the work? Here it's through this sort of, the magic in this sort of toy sort of object that we can also relate to. And then this piece is made out of just bags and hats.
Bags and hats. Mm-hmm.
That are, again, sewn together, but, sewing them together, they're already a three-dimensional form as an object, so sewing them together, so that's already in place. So within building a lot of this work, so much of construction, so much of the application is already in place. Mm-hmm. It's just me sort of recognizing the potential within that material. And so I have no idea what this is going to look like once it's on the body. I'm just based.
So you don't visualize it as you're working on it. Or do you think this is how I want it to look? Or this is how I want someone to move in this piece?
I don't really think about this is how I want it to look. Mm-hmm. I try to let go of as much as I can in order for it to arrive to what it needs to be. So it keeps me, I have this amazing independence in the studio. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid of what I may not know. So I'm so when I come face to face with it, it's like you seeing it for the first time. This is when I see it for the first time.
Okay.
And, but in my studio, it's, we will build a piece and the moment we're done with it and I see it, it's put away. It's put into a sort of a holding pen, then we photograph it, and then it's shipped out. So I never, ever come in contact with my work again.
So what do you mean?
I see it in the exhibition here, or I'm not attached to any of it.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't need, there's not that need for that.
So what do you mean it's shipped out?
Meaning it goes to my gallery.
I see.
Or it goes off to an exhibition.
Okay.
So like right now we're working on a new exhibition that's opening in France in the fall, which is 60 new works and 8 new video works.
Okay.
And, you know, we're building and we're putting it away. It's never in the presence of the studio.
I see.
So like when we go to Little France and we unpack everything, it's going to be very exciting for me because it's like, it's like, and for me to see it in a sort of a room where it's 60 pieces, it's like, again, a feeling that I can't even sort of describe. So, and then I turn around and I look at it and I sort of say goodbye. So I'm able to sort of move on.
Yeah, because some people can't do that. They become so attached, the hoarders, I guess. But good for you.
And then most recently, you have a piece here that's all out of pipe cleaners. That was sort of the most recent sort of phenomenon in the studio. I hate pipe cleaners, but
why do you hate pipe cleaners?
This is like
we used them in elementary school.
I just didn't think that they had much purpose, or until I started to work with them, and then I realized, wow, they're like amazing to work with. So again, it's the potential in a material that can sort of be sort of used as an amazing structural sort of device to build a foundation. And also I'm interested in that low craft element in the work. I'm interested in putting all of that on the fence. So conversation is not just sort of shaped in one direction. That
sure.
I have no problem talking about craft in an art context and just sort of pushing the materials to where we reconsider that notion. So this is also hats and bags, but it's been invaded by, like, that's a Dayglow on shoestring. So I came across a shoestring company that was going out of business.
Okay.
So we just bought all the shoestrings. But again, being able to bring this kind of application to a surface just literally sort of heightens the sensory there, which is interesting for me too. And then also what happens, this stance is all happening in photographs. I'm in all of these pieces.
Okay.
So let me just sort of state that. And so what I'm doing, through photography, I'm understanding even more about the work. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, this may be a new direction where it's, the body is implied, but it's not. It's, just the stem and then this sort of form that becomes another sort of idea in itself.
So if you create pieces for a school, you're in residency, what comes first? If it's for a dance department, does the dance come first? Does that inform the piece, or the piece first?
It's the piece.
The piece.
Mm-hmm. So if I was working with you, I could, what I would probably do was send you a box of stuff.
And I'd make my own?
No. finished Soundsuits.
I see.
And then I
see,
would
okay.
sort of like, maybe I would tell you about them, or maybe I wouldn't. Depends on what I want to do. Because I'm interested also in just walking into something that I don't know. I'm interested in sort of providing you with work and then allowing you to sort of develop something.
I see.
Without my sort of involvement. Or I'm interested in the collaboration.
Okay.
So it can go both ways.
Okay. Okay.
So this is just a video. Well, you saw the video clip. But, you know, here's working with, you know, it's working with a number of, an entire production crew, video crew. But then, you know, I needed pogo stick jumpers. So I just, you know, sent out a Craigslist and...
Okay. I was going to ask, where did you get them?
And so, you know, you had to come in and try out. I mean, because, you know, jumping in a sound, being in a sound and then jumping
on a pogo
stick is not like an
something
easy
you do
task
every day.
if you don't know how to do it.
That's right. And I've seen that stop sign image in some of your other pieces. Is there any significance to that?
Well, you know, that's just me sort of, again, at a flea market and just in a state of disbelief that somebody would create that hook rug, stop sign. I mean, it's just sort of like, I would never do that in my studio.
Sure.
Never.
Sure.
But I'm so like seduced. I mean, that's when it becomes crazy for me. I'm just like nuts. And it's sort of toying around with, you know, that low craft kind. Believe it or not, that was a toilet seat cover.
Ew.
I mean, like.
Yeah.
Like,
but it was.
I mean, so it's like, why? But
it was woven. It was woven.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like hook rug. It's a,
okay,
it's a process.
all right. Well,
so
why
for
not,
me, it's like that even makes it even more, you know, it just sort of solidifies a belief even stronger because it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Gotta have that. Gotta use that.
I gotta have it for whatever reason.
These are beautiful. Now, Nick, are these raffia? Are these all made out of
hair?
Hair. Human hair?
Yeah. And I'm sort of the mayor, which is the one.
The first one.
Yeah. And I can't, okay, in this particular piece, I can't see out of because it's really what's for a sculpture. But what and so we're shooting in this studio that's sort of a disappearing sort of wall. So you really can't see where the floor begins.
Okay.
So it's infinity sort of studio. And so, you know, before I put the piece on, I just basically just sort of studied the room. Because I knew once I got into this, I had to just wing it. Because I don't know if I'm going forward, backwards, sideways.
Sure.
But what I was more interested in was just how can I sort of, because at that moment I have to get into character.
Of course.
So that transformation takes every bit of my being in order to sort of make that transition. So I'm not interested in the space at that point anymore. What I'm interested in is having conviction and being something other with that conviction. So therefore you're looking at this image as a being, not a person in something.
Sure.
So, but it was amazing. And I just lost it.
Did you?
In this performance. Oh, yeah.
Did you? So what was the music? What music was playing?
I don't even remember.
Was there music? You had music, though.
But it wasn't the music that was created for the piece.
I see.
It was just music in this. And I wasn't even thinking about music. What I was thinking about was being empowered and being dominating in this space that was invaded by these other beings. So I had to come in and.
So these other beings, these are dancers? Are these dancers?
You know, in this case, what it was these are all my studio assistants here.
I see. Okay.
Because, you know, there's, you know, what I do in the studio, like I'll bring them on sets.
I see.
You know, if I'm out of the country doing a major project, I'll bring 3 of them with me. I just change it up all the time. Because not only do they need to, it's not about the studio only, it's about, you know, what happens once the work leaves the studio. And so for me to be able to provide them that type of experience
That's wonderful.
is sort of important, an important element. So therefore when they're in the studio and we have tours that come through the studio, if I'm not there, they can talk about the studio practice, and the work, you know, how the work sort of functions out in the world.
How many assistants do you have?
Right now I have 10.
Wonderful.
But it can range from 10 to 20 depending on how massive the project is. So this is me jumping on a trampoline. So again, it's all about, you know, it's, you know, and then sort of working as a director, working with the photographer, saying that this is what I'm looking for. And so that piece and this piece here is the mascot for Lille 3000, which is this exhibition that's coming up in Lille, France.
Okay.
And it's this sort of, it's a biennale. It's massive. It's about 200 artists that are going to be in Lille, France, doing anything from exhibition, installation, performance, site-specific works. And so they're using Bunny Boy as sort of
Bunny Boy.
all of the programming and image for all the programming.
I see.
And Bunny Boy is a new performance piece that I'm working on.
Okay.
So there's 3 of them. There is pink, yellow, and like baby blue.
Bunnies.
Bunnies. And so the project, which we'll be doing this summer, is that Bunny Boy will be hitchhiking all throughout Chicago. So so it's 3 of us. We're out on location all at the same time. With us is a videographer. So if you stop Bunny Boy, then the videographer comes up to you, and he asks if it's okay if we video you.
Okay.
So we only video your mouth though, and we only ask you one question. Why did you pick up Bunny Boy? So we're just interested in like what in your, why, you know, just you know, why would you stop for something like this?
Yeah.
And so then what we're doing is that we're writing like location, time of day.
I see.
And we've been doing it for about 4 months.
Oh,
now.
you've already started.
We've started the process.
I see.
And you'll be amazed who stops and picks up Bunny Boy.
Who stops? Who are the people who stop?
Lots of people.
Really?
Yeah. And, you know, you know, the question is asked, and sometimes they get really emotional because they don't know why. They're afraid to say why, you know.
So these are people who are walking?
Driving. No, driving. You're driving.
Oh, wait, okay.
Because I'm hitchhiking, so you're driving.
People pick Bunny Boy up and let Bunny Boy get into their vehicle?
Well, we don't get in. It's just
But they would. They would.
Ooh. Would you stop for Bunny Boy?
Nope. Not me.
See, I would stop.
You would stop.
Just because I'm like, what? Just the thought of like...
You know what? I would stop. I'd roll my window up to about here, and I would have a conversation with Bunny Boy, but I wouldn't open the door. No.
But you would
stop. I would stop.
Why would you stop?
Because I'd like to know, who are you? Who are you? Why are you dressed like that?
And so we ask, you know, your occupation and what you do and blah, blah, blah. And so this is, again, photographing in the studio. So, you know, again, this photograph for me is interesting because I'm thinking furniture. So it's not just about art, it's about furniture. It's about, again, just, you know, what else can come out of this work that perhaps can help facilitate other ways in which I'm thinking about
Not my phone.
Thinking about, the work and ideas that are in my head about just this umbrella of the various disciplines.
This is an interesting piece. You want to tell us a little bit about this?
Hopefully the full image is next. I don't know.
I think it is.
Is it? Okay.
No.
Let me see where it is. Okay, well, let's just go back to it. So this is a figure, but then the apparatus that's above the body is sort of this sort of tree sort of structure. And then in the tree are all of the sort of found, that's a found vintage mask, the cat mask, that I picked up at
Someone had thrown that away?
At Antique Fair, yeah.
Okay.
And then these cozies here that I've been gathering for a long time, sort of set up around this sort of apparatus. And then hanging from below is about 10 inches of bugle beads. So it's like black rain is what I'm sort of thinking. And so, and in addition to those, there are also these sort of black sort of figurative sort of dolls that also surround the body. And then you can't really see them, but then also integrated within the piece are mirrors that are all throughout the piece.
I see.
On the back of the mirror are eyes that are applied onto the surface. So it has a lot to do with voodoo magic.
Sure.
Sure. But the interesting thing about this piece, the exhibition at Mary Boone, we installed the exhibition. This was sort of in the center. So, we installed the show. It was up. Everything was great. It looked great. We left. I get a call like at 8 o'clock in the morning. This piece had caused havoc. So it fell over, which then fell over onto another piece, which then fell over to another.
Oh,
so
no.
it was just like a chain reaction.
Oh, no. Of your pieces.
Yeah, and the show opened in like 2 hours. So I had to like go in with, luckily I have assistants there. We had to sort of reinstall these
Every
5
piece.
works. And because of this piece. So therefore, it just had me like, oh.
That's right.
In a different
This
sort of
piece, of course.
frame of mind. So I had a little conversation with this piece.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
And, but it's about, again, the power in the object, and here it's about the sort of nostalgic history and the sort of that is also part of a much sort of deeper.
So where is this piece now?
Someone's collection. I don't know who. I've got to find out though, because I'm curious to know what's going on.
I would love to know. I'd
In the
love to know.
house.
Absolutely.
I mean, really.
That's what I'd like to know.
Were you going to say something?
No, I just thought you were worried about the house that it's in. You were saying.
Yeah. I'm just sort of curious to know where it is, or unless it's part of a
Yeah.
museum collection. And I normally know, but I just don't in this case. So this is all sweaters. Instead of sweater bones, here we're just working with a sort of cylinder structure.
And
And
what
the-
is the cylinder?
It's a metal sort of infrastructure underneath
I see.
that rests again on the body. And then we're just bringing actual sweaters to the form and just tying them
Tie them on.
together into knots. And then once they're tied into knots, then anything that has a fold in it or it's overlapping, we stitch
I see.
down. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there's that piece. There it is. Oh, boy.
And so it's interesting because the mirrors, just a little slight movement in the air, they reflect.
And where are the
Flicker.
eyes?
And the eyes are on the back
On
of
the
the
back of
mirrors.
the mirror.
So this stands about 10 feet tall.
So is this a piece that you can dance in? No. No.
Sculpture.
Okay. But it stands alone.
And so the form there is an ottoman that I found.
Okay, I thought that was a basket, a big basket. It's an ottoman.
Yeah. And so again, you know, what I do is that, so I will take the form, the ottoman, and I will just stand, you know, in a mirror, and I'll just start moving it around my body. And then I'll just sort of know when it's where it needs to be.
Okay.
And then once I know where it needs to be, then I start to think about the form that can support the object. And so that's how shapes and things are sort of how it come to shape. Again, all twigs.
Now, Randy, one question. Do you polish or paint the twigs, or is that their natural color?
Natural. And then I'm starting to think a little bit about, you know, myth within my work through powers in animal forms. So this is the beginning of that.
And this is new work for you? A new direction?
And then, yeah, so this, the head is taxidermy sort of catalog that you can just buy, styrofoam forms.
I see.
And then that goes on the body, so we hollow out the inside and build a structure that supports all of that. And so it's like, you know, again, just we would never make this in the studio. But it's, you know, it's amazing what's available.
Sure.
But, you know. And it's really just about, you know, thinking about, you know, placement and collage and order. The form comes from, you know, when I think about form, I think a lot about sort of significant sort of shapes within the world that sort of speak about power for me. So like here I'm looking at, in order to get to this place, I'm looking at the mitre hat, the form of that.
Sure.
I'm looking at the head of a missile. I'm looking at the Klan uniform, and I'm looking at the head of a condom. So it's bringing all four of these to this intersection to sort of come to this shape.
The herd. Beautiful.
You know, so interesting here because I'm thinking, okay, so this is at the Nasher Sculpture Center. So the performance starts where they're in the basement, and then the garage opens and they come up out of the basement onto the sculpture lawn. And so it's as if they're sort of been sort of held within the sort of corral or within the holding pen. And so they come up on the lawn before we go out into the street. Okay. But in the sculpture garden, people are standing around. And I just assumed that when they were coming up, people would just move back. No, they were going to them.
Of course.
And they were patting them.
They
so
were
it just became a whole different kind of, it was really a different kind of experience than I had intended.
And how about children? Little people, were they coming up to them?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would think so. They would
Some
be
were
attracted to
scared,
the colors,
but, you know,
of
they
course.
became a little comfortable with it.
And so where are the musicians?
They are, like, this is out. So, like, in Dallas, it's the Dallas Art Museum, the Nasher Sculpture Center, and then the Asian Art Museum. So it's all, like, in sort of like a U.
Okay.
And so the percussionists are on the other end of the street, so. And so this is all made from rugs.
The rag rugs?
Rag rugs, round, square, what have you. Again, just, you know, I understand, I come from a, you know, I chair the fashion department at the School of the Art Institute. So
That's right.
I understand pattern. And so I know how, like if I'm sewing a curve with a straight line, the shape that it's going to be. So again, just allowing it to sort of, allowing yourself to be open to
what it's going to
what
be.
it's going to be becomes, keeps it sort of in this sort of space, place where it's not sort of so contrived and so calculated.
And then you're not disappointed.
No,
if you
'cause
think in terms of,
right.
I want this object to be this way,
Have we been
but if you
answering
just
any
let
of your
it go.
questions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is another piece. So I've been collecting these blow molds, like in the yards at Christmas, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just happened to run into one in a thrift store one day, and I just flipped out. So I just went online and just then we just sort of went to, we just started buying them on eBay.
On eBay.
Nick, I think there might be one or two more video pieces.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we could maybe see one of those and then open up for questions. I'm sure there might be questions in the
Oh, there we go.
This is Drive-By, right? Or
This is part of Drive-By.
Yeah.
And so the soundtrack for Drive-By is, I worked with a friend in LA. It's a sound artist that produced the sound. So what I did is I just sent him the actual piece, finished piece, and then he created the sound.
Create the sound.
All buttons. And so in front is a cart, the red wheels.
See.
But then, coming to this form, I'm looking at like an hourglass guitar case, sort of a hat that has the bib on it in the front. So to get to this sort of shape. And then this is an actual chair that's sitting on the shoulder. So the legs of the chair are going across the shoulders. And then and then building this apparatus up around it. So this is me thinking about me sort of in this capsule, and then I'm being transcended into another.
And these are buttons.
Another world.
It's made
yeah.
from buttons.
And so for me here, this shape in this case becomes like a morning glory.
And where is this?
This is at Mary Boone Gallery in New York. The piece you have here.
So maybe can we continue to look at images while you take some questions from the audience?
Oh, yeah.
If people would like to ask a question. And feel free, I don't know if we can adjust the lights at this point, but just shout out.
How do you color the hair like that? And how do you attach it to the body?
We get most of the hair in New York City, and it's already colored. It's on a tracking, so it's like, if you want long hair, you just stitch it into your head. So it's already sort of available. So what we do is that, we sort of, so what we spend our time is just drawing right on to the ground cloth that it's going to be attached to, is where we design the pattern. And then we just stitch it on by machine.
Other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
You talk about objects kind of like fulfilling their responsibility, like while you're working with them. And so I wonder if it's possible for you, like, do you consider that you ever have failures where you make something that you aren't happy with, or is just the act of like allowing these things to realize their potential like sufficient? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have failure, of course. But I also have to, but I pull back. And the question is it really a failure? Or is it another way for me to sort of reconsider? So I think that's probably where I'm more interested in that, more so than I would be probably bored otherwise.
There's a question here. How did you stand up, sweetheart? Stand up so we can really hear you.
How do they walk in it if they can't see?
Well, in the ones that are for sculptures, you can't walk in them, but the ones that you can walk in, we make sure that you can see by putting a sort of a sight line in the building of the piece.
Good question.
And then back there.
I'm interested in knowing what you use for your mannequins that were heavy enough to hold the weight.
Well, in some of the structures, we basically have to go through the entire body with a metal apparatus. So there's holes in the shoulders, and then the metal piece will then rest within that part of the body. So we, again, it's all engineering through as we're just. I'm using mannequins.
And so how do you weight the bottom of them so it'll...
Well, that's also part of the design. So those that are heavy, we have to sort of think about a different sort of way of building the mannequin. And those that are not so heavy, we can just use mannequins. And in the mannequins, there's a rod in the foot and in the back of the calf that supports it.
In the back?
Yeah. Was there somebody in your childhood or some events in your childhood that you strongly feel are like originating points for the love of color and sort of popular culture in this and all that's sort of coming together in this? Were there some particular experiences and people that you feel led you here?
I was raised by a single mother. My father died when I was 16. And I have 7 siblings, all boys. So, I was like on the basketball team with my brothers, I think it was just, my mother. I think it was my mother. Because every holiday, I would always make her cards. I never, ever bought her a card, ever. Still don't. And just that card and how she would make me feel that it was like the most enormous gift in the world. I would look at her as a kid like, because I couldn't believe that she was that affected.
Special. Sure.
And I think it's being affected is what sort of, I think that's really what it was. It's like, so I think about like being effective in my work. And just, the independence from, her and just saying, it's, you've got to be happy. I mean, I had some amazing jobs. I used to work for, my first job, I think, was with Hallmark. And I was there for 2 years. And
what were you doing with Hallmark?
I was head of their exhibition space. But, I was like,
I thought you would have been designing cards.
This is not.
You weren't designing cards
for done
them.
Here. Yeah. And so, I remember talking to my mother, and I said, you know what, I need to move on. So this is them coming up from down.
That's fabulous. That is fabulous.
And my mother was just really upset about it because she's like, you have insurance, the stuff that parents would say.
Sure.
And then I said, I'm not happy. And she goes, okay.
There you go.
So I went to
Stop
grad
being
school
happy.
then. And so this was my last exhibition at Jack Shaman Gallery, which was an exhibition that was dedicated to my friend that I had just lost prior to building this show. So you walk into the gallery and you're greeted by these guardians.
Mm-hmm. So this was inspired by the loss of your friend?
Yeah. Questions? I'm just sort of looking up here.
Sorry.
All of these things that you make are so visually rich and beautiful, and yet none of these sculptures have eyes.
Uh-huh.
And I just wonder, you know, I don't want to overanalyze, but it seems kind of curious that there's no way for them to see themselves.
Right. Well, part of the work is about sort of hiding sort of gender, race, class. So you're forced to look at the work without judgment. So that's pretty much what that is about. And it's, again, these are sculptures, so in this case, there would be no eyes. But if it was for performance purposes, then we would create that sort of, that would be part of the designing of the piece. But, I think we'll just stop here, but I just want to tell you, so I talked to my mother on the phone like a year ago, and I said, I'm going to give my brothers each a sound suit for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. What'd she say?
And she was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. They will just flip out. And so therefore I'm sort of like, okay, how am I going to do this? So I get these gold envelopes and I put an image of their sound suit in it with this letter that I wrote to them. Mm-hmm. And so at Christmas I'm handing them this the envelopes, and they're like, what is he doing? Like, and so they opened it up and they were just like, just shocked.
Shocked. Pleasantly shocked.
Surprisingly shocked. Yeah. But, it was a time where I thought I have to do it right now because I just knew that it was,
this
was
the
time.
time. It was the time.
So, so that's what I did for them.
Did you make specific sound suits for them, or you gave them just
No,
ones that you had
I did.
work on?
Specific ones, like this is Don's, my brother Don. But, So this was in response to my friend that had passed. So
I see. Mm-hmm.
This is all. So the head is thinking of the head of a tuba, and then the entire piece is covered in black shell buttons. So it's one continuous garment that's connected together.
It's all buttons.
All
covered in buttons.
And what I was referencing was. Looking at New Orleans and sort of this sort of procession that follows a funeral. Mm-hmm. And then also the silencing of sound in this case. This is in Jex Shaman in New York. But now it's going to be in Little France, the piece.
Any other questions? This gentleman and then John in the back. Yes.
You described back in 1992 when you first started this whole project, you found a twig that was discarded, similar to you as a black male being discarded. 20 years later, with your work, do you define yourself as I'm a present black man? Or
I don't define myself as anything. Do I feel my presence?
In your work.
Oh, sure, definitely.
I saw a number of other hands.
Yeah, John, there's one in the back.
Yeah, here.
John?
Do you delegate any of the creative decision-making to your assistants? And conversely, do you participate in the manual construction of each sound suit?
Oh, yeah. I'm in the studio every day with them, building. I tried to sort of like give them some sort of independence or liberty, but they just, those who have been with me the longest I have, but they just can't somehow make it happen. I mean, I could go out of town and say, you know, I want you guys to just do whatever you want, and I'll come back and they would have done nothing. Because they can't, they just can't. They just can't. They don't think like I think. See, I go in it, I'm just sort of like, just so that color, oh, that's great. They don't really understand like my choices, because I don't really, I just kind of like go with it. It's like I don't like, okay, let me think about it and then, you know, try to figure it out. I just said, oh yeah, just put that with this, this with that, and that looks great, okay. So, you know, it's you know, not everybody is made up the same way, but.
So maybe one more question, and I know there are other questions out there, but I suspect he would take questions individually over some wine and food.
Wine. The reception. There's a reception.
Yeah. Also, I'm mindful of the fact that his had nothing to eat all day but a beet salad, which he ate right before we walked over to campus, so we want to get platters of food around him as well as you. So do you have one more question?
John Hughes.
Yeah, all the way at the back.
Stand up, John.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering if you would say something about your choice to refer to these as soundsuits. You haven't once mentioned anything about the sound they make and your concern about that in the building. So I'm curious about how that's important to you, to think of them that way and to have them referred to as soundsuits.
Well, you know, with sound, you know, we tend to think that it's something you hear all the time, but it's not. You know, sound can sort of be established by the way in which pattern is set up on a surface. You know, it's more of an internal rhythm. How you can look at something, you can sort of feel a putteringness or a sensation through the order of things. So, you know, that's sort of me sort of thinking about it when it becomes more sculptural. But when it's on the body, then I think more about it in the literal sense. And right now in the studio, in terms of the next video works, it's more about the sound of the actual object. So we're working on a video right now with the face of the sound suit is abacus, and then the body is buttons. And so me and another performer are getting ready to do a video where the device for communicating is the abacus. So as you move, it just sort of makes sound. And then us touching our bodies and the buttons rubbing. So it's becoming more about pulling, allowing the sound to play more of a significant sort of role within the work.
So just on that note, speaking of sound, I guess, on that note, I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank Marilyn.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.